But I'm Ted Lodden. I'm a NASBA Director at Large. I'm past chair of the Iowa Accountancy Board, and I'm getting a lot of feedback. Are you? Let me give you the results of the election last night, held during the regional meetings. In the Southwest region, the member of the nominating committee is Barbara Lay. Here's her picture. No, I'm just kidding. Can Barbara stand up, please? Okay, stay standing, please. The alternate is Tom Prothro. Tom here? No? From the mountain region is Karen Forrest Turner. Karen here? Oh, I was going to say it's good to have her back, but. And the alternate is Cheryl Giddy. Cheryl here. Yeah. You have a very important function, and we're glad to have you serving that new role, and we're looking forward to what you can do and will do for us. We're going to start this morning's meeting with a brief recap of the regional breakout sessions that happened yesterday afternoon, and I'm going to ask Ed Jolicoeur to kick this off, and then each of the regional directors are going to add in as we go, and hopefully we're not saying ditto, ditto, ditto by the time we get to the end. We'll try not to do that to you. So Ed, you start us off, please.
We had a Pacific region breakout session. It was very interactive and had lots of discussion. We covered many topics and just a lot of interplay and shared experiences and questions and issues. I'm going to just talk about 3 or 4. The first one is marijuana laws. With three states in...
That's a good place to start.
Yeah. with 3 states in our Pacific region now having legalized recreational use of marijuana, those states really feel like there needs to be a little more guidance on marijuana. Oh, I've said that wrong. What I mean is guidance on dealing with licensees who work with those in the business of marijuana related industry, and there just needs to be a little more, fleshing out of policies, maybe regulations, maybe kind of best practices, and it's kind of all over the board. We're all learning as we go. Us, Colorado, and other states as this sort of creeps out. There's all kind of a related issue was raised, particularly I think by California, is just the concern about other, issues relating to licensees. What kind of acts are considered detrimental to the practice of public accounting if you had a felony or a DUI and things like that. So, just the kind of regulation side of licensing for those situations. And, if somebody had maybe a molestation issue 20 years ago, does that still affect where that person's fit to be a CPA? So it's, I know a lot of us states have had concerns over that, and there's probably a wide disparity about how those situations are treated. Second item I'm going to talk about is something that came up in my state of Washington, problems that were related to individuals who have taken the CPA exam and are, whether they've taken it here or in the States or taken it at one of the international locations, and they're calling themselves CPAs, but they're without the benefit of a license. And particularly, we've seen that, we've had complaints come from Hong Kong and I think South Korea, and including situations where firms have permitted individuals to put CPA on their business cards without the benefit of a license, and very problematic, and I think something really ought to be taken taking a look at, maybe even at the NASBA level, to not only inform those licensees or those pre-licensees, if you will, but also maybe the other parties involved, those firms and other individuals and stakeholders, as to that these people are not licensed and they shouldn't be holding out. It's a violation. And a question did come up as to what is NASBA doing with respect to the 3-year window through which those individuals are required to be licensed, and it's just a real concern as we get more and more international credentials out there with people passing the exam but not getting licensed yet. Next item is, and we talk about this every year, budget issues, fund balance sweeps and fee increases, and some of our jurisdictions have all of the above or some of the above. A couple of the jurisdictions we're looking at in the Pacific region are looking at some very significant fee increases and what that's going to mean to the population out there. The last item I'll mention relates to client record preservation. And this has to do with situations where the practitioner either passes away or there are just abandonments of practices or sales and other transitions of practices, and preserving those client records. And we've had some very difficult situations in my state, in Washington, records left on the sidewalk when someone's office has been cleaned out by the landlord, things like that, or just somebody passes away with no way to preserve those records and no transition in place. So we're looking at that as a real concern, and with whatever limitations we have, because our governor in our state, for example, said you can't do anything about that, where our prior governor said we should do something about that. So it's a real concern, and particularly relating to the public protection and really security. So that's all I had.
We had a very interactive and spirited discussion as well yesterday. First, a little bit about, we went through a little bit of what has been going on, there being a recently completed legislative session for all of our states. What came out of that was, in general, especially with the state of Arkansas, there was a real anti-business environment with a supposedly very pro-business freshman legislature. And because of that, they were unable to get their peer review program passed. And only in Arkansas can you have a winning vote and have a recount and then lose it again the way they did. But Jimmy Corley, licking his wounds, and they're going to go back and try the next session and feel pretty comfortable they'll be able to be successful. In Texas, we don't really have the problem with fee sweeps. In fact, our license fee went down from $247 to $47 because all professionals in the state who have a head tax of $200, whether it be accountants, engineers, architects, whomever, that's all been removed. Now, that was a good thing. The bad thing is that down the road, when we don't have the revenues in Texas that we now have, that could bring in sales tax as a possibility for professionals. So I don't know which one is worse, but that's from a legislative standpoint, that's of a concern, even though it was our CPAs in the state are happy. In Oklahoma, I think they're very proactive on this. They passed a bill to allow CPA practices to be put into a living trust so that succession issues can be dealt with at the death of a CPA. And I was real happy to hear that they've really taken that, and I think that's something that every state's going to need to visit with if they haven't already. As far as the topics we talked about, we talked a little bit about the nano CPE. We were lucky enough to have Mike Fritz, who's the Great Lakes Regional Director, in the room with us because in Ohio they have nano CPE as allowed credits. There was some questions about it being an operational issue as far as, 5 courses for, I guess, 5 credits of nano learning to be 1 hour credit, and as far as an operational inputting of the CPE information. But really, more importantly, there was a question about whether the emphasis on learning and whether you would really be able to, if you were allowed to be able to get 40 hours of CPE in a year, and some states might allow you to do that, what kind of background or backbone do you have as far as experience to then add on, components. So if you have all 40 hours of your CPE every year from these nano learning programs, I mean, how good is your overall learning? So that was a question, no real resolution to it. But when it came to the peer review issue, and even before our presentations yesterday about some of those issues with the Department of Labor and others, I know in our state of Texas, and I got the sense from the other states as well, that we're frustrated by the length of time it takes to get bad actors out of the program. And we'd like to see, at least with greater discussion about at least moving from an educational remedial to a more enforcement-based, if we can't do things more quickly as far as getting some resolution, some of the bad audit work and other attest work and the folks out of that. That's all I have to report.
Hi, I'm Ben from the Mountain State region, and we had a few discussions, and it was great discussions on several topics. First discussion was on SARS-21, and most states are looking into it. Montana and Wyoming said they'll address it when they hit peer review. Colorado says that they have no statutory requirements, so they're going to follow the AICPA's approach. And of course, Nevada, we have a different definition of a test function, so we're looking into whether it should be included or not under our statutes. We also talked about states with social media, which was pretty lively. We only have really 2 states that use it. Idaho uses it. They use, I think, Twitter and Facebook, and they spend about an hour and a half a week maintaining it, but they say that there's a lot of people using it. I think Wyoming uses it, but they say they don't have enough time to maintain it, and that was the biggest question, was what type of benefit the social media, Facebook and Twitter and all that provides if the staff can't maintain it in a timely manner. So, also we talked about, was a long time, was inactive versus retired status, and that's all over the page in our region. Several states, they have the inactive, they have emeritus status, they have retired status, and sometimes there's not much difference between them. What they're finding out, people want to go that way to eliminate some CPE requirements. Some states have an annual fee for being a retired status or inactive status, and that's why they tend to control their members to see what they were doing at that point. Idaho says you can do work, any type of work except for signing opinion letters, comps and reviews and audits. Other states say you can't do anything. The statute says anything that accounting firm does, if you're retired, you can't perform it at that point. So there was really no consensus, but it was just a very information orientated. We also talked about nano learning and blended learning and self-directed learning, and most states in our regions are looking at it. They're concerned about how many hours you could do in a nano learning to get for your 40 hours. Can you do 10 hours, 12 hours, or can you do the full 40? And the requirement of maintaining, inputting that amount of information into the systems at that point. Foreign evaluation services, we got into that because there's Wyoming and some of the states are getting a lot of input applications from foreign candidates, and I think Wyoming's the one that has, or Montana, I'm not sure which one, they don't require a social security number on the applications. So there's a lot of foreign people coming into the state, and they're filing for their CPA certificate. And the question is what type of services, courses will be allowed, and are these evaluation services really doing the job? And I think the consensus was everybody's going to go back and look at who they use and try to determine which ones they should stay with and whether they can eliminate some of them. I think in Nevada we use up to 30 or so, and we're just got to start cutting it down. So, and then we also talked about of course, the applications, and like I said, Wyoming is seeing levels. There are more retirees than candidates at this point, so Wyoming's going into a downturn a little bit. But that's pretty much what we talked about. We had a great discussions, and
Quickly, Ben, thank you, Ben, and Coalter and Ed. We're running a little behind, so I'm going to summarize this quickly by adding perhaps just quickly what we discussed in the Central Region. We spent quite a bit of time on the inactive retired discussion, and quite frankly, we didn't come into any sense of an agreement, Coalter, unfortunately. And so I think the best thing we can do is everybody should really reach out to Coalter and the UAA committee and give them your thoughts on this. I think that would be quite helpful. We also discussed peer review and audit quality, big issue, big concern in the Central Region. And a lot of this is surfacing from getting access to peer review reports and the letters of comment and sifting through those, or from the DOL audits and uncovering some pretty bad actors. So we all plan, I assume, to keep our eye on that. And then nano, we had a discussion about nano too. And, you know, in the Central Region, we're kind of slow to change sometimes. And we're really not, as a group, I don't think everybody's buying into the nano concept. One comment that was made was, so a person can seek to find an answer, find a CPA course that fits that answer, get CPE credit, put down an hour of billable time to bill to the client. Maybe, but what's so different about that from sitting in an 8-hour course, finding the one planning opportunity that you were looking for and then walking out and being able to implement that with your client? I don't know that there's a great deal of difference between it, but you be the judge. As always, this session, I think, was a great opportunity for the regions to weigh in. This is your opportunity to network, to weigh in on the issues, to discuss the issues, to get feedback, to find out who to contact at NASBA if you need to. And as always, the Central Region did a great job of that. They always do. So thanks to my colleagues and everyone who participated in those excellent discussions.